Hi there, welcome to Kneppy Invest. On April the 12th, I released a video on Element 25 as they were the first company to release their March quarterly results. Now, when I say the first company, I'm talking about the first company with actual cash receipts. A few other companies that are mining explorers released their Appendix 5B, but I don't really follow those companies too closely because they do not have any receipts. Now, Element 25 is a mining company. They released an Appendix 5B. Now, the first company to release their Appendix 4C for the March quarter in financial year 23 is a company called Althea. Now, Althea, you can tell if you're watching the video here, in the background, I have some marijuana. So yes, Althea is a cannabis company. So congratulations to Althea, the first company on the ASX to release their Appendix 4C for the March quarter. Now, I have not really followed or looked at Althea in the past, and the logo I do have here is actually one half of the company. So you do have to be aware of that. This company is actually called Althea Group, and one half of the company is actually Althea, the other half, which is medicinal cannabis, and the other half of the company is another division, which is all about recreational cannabis. So in fact, this logo is not their real logo, or the Althea Group logo anyway. So Althea Group is all about cannabis, medicinal cannabis and recreational cannabis. Company listed on the ASX in September 2018. Their shareholder, the major shareholder, largest shareholder is Joshua Fagan. I'll talk about him in a second. He has a 15.1% stake in the company, and he is actually the founder and CEO. So there is a bit of skin in the game when it comes to Althea. Shares on issue, not too high, probably what you want, not too low either. So 361 million shares on issue. Now, what surprised me when I started researching this company is that the market cap of Althea is only $19 million. That's at a share price of 5.2 cents. And if we go through the history of this company, the market cap range is between 15 million, which was not that long ago in March 2023. But there was a fair bit of hype in this company and a lot of other cannabis companies back in 2018 and 19. So the market cap high or valuation high for this company was actually 250 million in July 2019. So a significant range there when it comes to the valuation. And that valuation is all about sentiment, particularly in these sort of companies. And remember, just like we went through a lithium hype stage, we've also gone through a 3D printing hype stage, and also we went through a cannabis hype stage a few years ago. And right now, there's no love when it comes to cannabis at all, it seems like. And the ticker code for this company is AGH. So I've already mentioned that when I first started researching this company, I made the slight mistake that I just Googled Althea, and it took me through to the pharmaceutical cannabis part or arm of Althea Group's holdings business. So I thought this company was all about pharmaceutical cannabis, but I did delve a little bit deeper, and then I realized this company has two divisions or two arms. One of them is the pharmaceutical cannabis, which is Althea, and the second part of the business is a recreational cannabis, which is another company called Peak. So both of these arms or divisions of Althea Group is all about development, manufacture, sales and distribution of cannabis-based either medicines for the pharmaceutical or recreational cannabis in regards to Peak. As I've already mentioned before, maybe a little bit too hasty, Joshua Fagan, who is the largest shareholder of this company, is also the CEO, managing director, and founder of the Althea Group. He founded Althea Health back in 2016, coinciding with the registration of the ND Amendment Act, an act to amend the ND Act legalizing medicinal cannabis. So he saw that, and he didn't take much time in finding or founding Althea Health. Now let's have a look at their Appendix 4C for the March quarter. Before we have a look at the most recent Appendix 4C, let's go back 1 year ago. I just want to see how this company has progressed over the past year. So receipts to customers 1 year ago, 5.5 million, yet the company was operating cash flow negative by 2.2 million. So this company spends a lot of money, $2.7 million on product manufacturing and operating costs, 3.2 million on staff costs, and 1.4 million on administration costs. So staff costs and administration costs combined about 4.5 million. And because this company is burning through a lot of cash, you can see the cash on hand actually fell from 10.3 million to 7.9 million. So that would be my main concern when it came to Althea Group. If I did look at this company more closely about 1 year ago, is that more than likely this company would need to do a capital raising unless they increase their cash receipts at a significantly greater rate than they're spending. But a lot of companies like this have trouble doing that, apart from right now. It seems like a lot of companies are focusing on cost control. My main question to all these companies is, why didn't you think about this 1 or 2 years ago before you moved into these troubled times? I'm all about these companies who are always thinking about cost control. So let's see how Althea Group is doing in the latest quarter and compare it to the quarter 1 year ago. I like to compare quarters, this quarter to the previous corresponding period, March quarter last year, because you sort of eliminate any sort of seasonality. That's more true for other companies, may not be as true for Althea, or Althea Group, I should say. So receipts up 3.4 million to 8.9 million year to date, 9 months, 23.7 million. So receipts are moving in the right direction. The question I have is, what's happening to their spending? So receipts up 3.4 million, administration costs up 400,000, staff costs up $100,000. So combined administration and staff costs only up $500,000. So even though I was thinking they were spending probably a little bit too much on staff costs and administration costs, possibility is they are aware of that. So we haven't seen a significant expansion in those two areas, but we have seen, or Althea Group has seen, a significant expansion in product manufacturing and operating costs. That's up 2.7 million. But the main thing here is receipts up 3.4 million and spending up a little bit less than that. And that means the company is not quite as operating cash flow negative, only operating cash flow negative by 1.6 million, but the cash on hand actually increased. So what they've done, instead of a capital raising, so I thought that was a threat, they've decided instead to borrow money. So they borrowed $4.2 million. Now that is a slight concern for me. I don't like companies getting into too much debt, but they've probably went, well, we could do a capital raising. The share price is down a lot. And do we want to do a capital raising when the share price is at these levels, when the valuation of a company is $15 to $20 million? Or will we prefer to borrow money? And that could be the right strategy, particularly if they expect the company to be cash flow positive fairly quickly or fairly soon. Now to some interesting tidbits when it comes to this quarter report. Now, typically, not always, but typically, when a company releases their quarter report way earlier than they used to or traditionally have, that's maybe a sign that this report is fairly good. I think last year they released their March quarter towards the end of the month. Now it's towards the start of the month. And that typically is, not always, but typically is a good sign. So here are some interesting tidbits found in their commentary. Now, the first bit here is the breakdown of the revenue of their Althea compared to Peak. So recreational cannabis, they received $5.2 million in receipts. And the pharmaceutical cannabis division, they only received 3.75. So at this point in time, and also believe Peak is actually profitable. So it seems like their recreational cannabis division is performing a little bit better than the pharmaceutical cannabis division. And to be honest with you, that's not a surprise. Also, Althea Group recorded 1.49 million in positive cash flow for the month of March. That seems a lot for 1 month, simultaneously achieving its maiden monthly operating profit. So it seems like things may be moving in the right direction for this company. They also mentioned they invested $1.96 million in product inventory. So one of the problems with the Appendix 4C or 5B is you don't see any changes in working capital unless the company mentions it. So one of the reasons why this company might be operating cash flow negative is because they've increased their inventory. So they've sort of mentioned or implied that within the commentary. And the company expects to report a substantially improved cash flow position and record a quarterly operating profit for the final quarter of financial year 23. Now, the market has responded really positively to this report, and I think these tidbits are the reason why the share price increased by 15% on April the 12th. Now to the receipts history for the company Althea Group. And this is really good. This is exactly what you want to see for a growing company. And Althea Group is a growing company. They've grown their receipts from $3,000 in the September quarter of 2018, all the way up to 8.9 million. And even though the growth of receipts is not, you don't see growth in every single quarter. For instance, the receipts actually fell from the September quarter to December quarter from 8.1 million to 6.6 million. So there could have been a possibility that some investors, some shareholders became nervous about that drop in receipts. But then receipts grew from 6.6 million to 8.9 million. So there's definite an uptrend in receipts over time here. And that's exactly what you want to see, because that means this company is growing. And the next thing we have to see, and I think the company is already starting to do that, we need to see some scale. We need to see a growth in receipts and much less growth in spending. Now let's have a look at Althea Group's chart. This goes all the way back to when the company listed back in 2018. And there was a period of time in 2019 when this company was beloved by the market. The share price actually increased from about 15 cents to a high of $1.45. You just see the share price went on a massive run. And I believe maybe that would have been the year. Seems like it's 4 years ago. Seems like it was longer than that, that there was a lot of hype in cannabis. But just by Althea Group's chart, maybe that was the year where cannabis companies just went bonkers. Share prices went bonkers. And then the share price fell all the way from $1.45 back down to around 15 cents. And that low of 15 cents was in the COVID-19 financial panic. So just like, and I've mentioned this a few videos before, talking about some charts, some share price action of many companies, many tech companies in the past 2 years, you see that Matterhorn signal, that Matterhorn pattern. The share price goes up and falls straight back down to where it started. And that's exactly true for Althea. But unlike many of these tech companies with that Matterhorn pattern which we have seen over the past few years, this pattern for Althea was back in 2019 and start of 2020. A little bit of recovery in the share price during the rest of 2020, but the share price went from about 15 cents back up to 65 cents, which is still a four-bagger. But since that high of 65 cents, which was in September 2020, share price of this company has been drifting lower, and in fact right now is in a well-defined downtrend. Not a lot of volume. We want to see growing volume, and if we do see growing volume, that would be telling us that the market is becoming interested in this company. So what we want to see is fund managers start buying Althea Group, and the best way Althea Group can get fund managers to be interested in their company is to become profitable on a continual basis. So let's have a look at the daily chart just to see if there's been any action recently, if there's been any shift or possible shifts in sentiment and the share price trend. So this is the daily chart going back almost 1 year ago. And we did see a nice little rally in the share price back in late June, early July. But it's understandable because remember May, June, I think was a really bad few months for the overall market. We did see the ASX bottom out in June, and a lot of companies' share price rallied in late June, early July, and that's definitely true for Althea. In fact, the share price went from about 6 cents back up to 17 cents, so a three-bagger in about 1 month, and there was actually high volume during that period. So that was, but you could see the share price move towards a 150-day moving average, and that 150-day moving average, a lot, is a good resistance level, and that's definitely true for Althea Group, because when the share price got to that height, there was a lot of selling came in, and the share price struggled and has been shifting or gradually shifting downwards ever since then. Now, even though the share price did rally about 15% when they released their quarterly report, the share price moved into the moving average zone, and that is suggesting that even though there was strength on this one day, there still will be a lot of resistance because many shareholders have bought in at higher share prices, and that is natural resistance. What I would like to see is the share price to go sideways, to consolidate at these levels. So all these shareholders who bought in at higher prices in the past, they don't want to be holding this dog stock anymore. They'll have the opportunity to sell out, because if the share price goes sideways, a lot of times you'll see shareholders who want the share price to rally eventually become bored and they say, well, the share price is doing nothing now. I don't think the share price is going to rally. I'm going to sell out. And a lot of times what you see is after an extended period of consolidation, all those shareholders, maybe not all, but a lot of shareholders who bought in at high prices, they're gone. They've left the system. And when the share price rallies, there's no resistance because they've all sold out. So I see this all the time. And a lot of times that's why I do wait for a period of time to just wait for all those negative shareholders to sell out. That's the good thing about the share price consolidating. Sometimes if the company releases some really good financial news, you won't see a very long consolidation period, if at all, and the share price will move straight into an uptrend. Maybe that will happen to Althea Group. At this point in time, even though this was a positive report, and even though the market did react quite well to it, the share price is still in a downtrend. There's still negative sentiment when it comes to this company. That's all I have looking at Althea Group. They did release the first Appendix 4C for the March quarter. That's the main reason I decided to do a video on this company. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have looked too hard at this company's Appendix 4C. And that could have been a shame because there are some things to like about this quarter report. So that's another benefit for a company to release their Appendix 4C or their 5B earlier than most companies, because you get people like me who will have a closer look at it. If they release it on the last day of the month with all the other companies' Appendix 4Cs or 5Bs, it might have got lost in all the other weight of news flow. So that's one good reason to release your core report early. So if you have any questions about it, Althea Group, about any other cannabis companies, in fact, I am a holder of a cannabis company, Natura. Maybe I'll become a shareholder of this company. Who knows? Because the current valuation does look cheap for a company that is expecting to have positive cash flow and to be profitable in the current quarter, which is the June quarter. So if you have any questions, I'd love to hear from you. So leave it in the comment section of this video. Otherwise, I am not a financial advisor. If you do need financial advice, make sure you seek out someone who is qualified and can speak to your own financial needs. That's it for this video. Have a good day. Bye.